Welcome to another edition of the Sim Racing Garage. I'm Barry Rowland. In this episode, I'll be reviewing the Phoenix Racing Class 1 racing wheel. From what I can tell, this wheel is as close as you can get to the real racing wheel used in the Audi DTM racing car. Of course, this raises my expectations to their highest level. Time to put it through the SRG's review process and see how it does. So, let's get to it. Let's take a closer look at this Phoenix Racing Class 1 steering wheel. Now, first off, it comes in this very nice Pelican-like case, very secure that you could actually ship this thing around the world, and I'm sure it would be okay. It's got some nice foam everywhere. It's got the cutout in here for the wheel, and of course the quick release that you're running. It has locks on it, rubber seal, very nice case. Yeah, I would expect something like that when it comes to a wheel like this. Right out of the box, first thing I do is pick up a wheel by the grips, because I just want to feel what that fitment is like on the human hand. And yeah, I have to say, there's a lot of wheels that have come through the SRG that have this type of grip on it. The shape, rather, not the material. This is a nice rubber. It's a grippy rubber. It's solid, not a lot of flex to it, but the grip is very good. In fact, it started giving me calluses pretty quickly when I was using it without gloves, so I put my gloves back on. But this one's different. They go to the extra links here to mold this grip instead of just putting some basic cuts on it. This thing is really thought out as far as ergonomics, I think. In the thumb portion, you can see the groove here, right in this section. And when you wrap your thumb in there, it just naturally glides in there. And that groove goes all the way, right all the way here, around the wheel. Well, there you go. I can show you that way. And you might not think that matters much, but it does when you have your hand actually on the grip itself. And we have this nice rise here that fills the palm when we're gripping it. Well, wrong hand. But when you grip it like that, well, let's use this hand for gripping. So it fills the palm very nicely in that area. And these little things like that that you notice. And the thumb just goes in here so nicely. And one of the reasons it does, and when you're gripping it feels good, because on the back it's not just a smooth piece. There's some notches cut out there too. You can see that this is for the forefinger. This is for your other finger. It goes in that notch. And then the rest of your fingers follow suit. At least that's how I grip it. Yeah. So the rest of two of my fingers are down here. This one's kind of going right in here and being supported across that spoke. There's also rubber all the way up there. And of course, this index finger's up here so we can get to these rear controls. So yeah, very nice grip. I've already driven with this wheel, and it's just one of those grips that you feel locked in right away. It's not tiring to hang on to it, in other words. Some wheels, the grips, and of course this is subjective, the kind of hand you have. Just to qualify this, my hand is a small when it comes to gloves. So somebody that has like an extra large might feel differently about this grip. But I have to say, for what it does for me, I really like it right out of the box. And when I was driving with it, I liked it. It's just, you don't have to require a lot of effort to hang on to it, just because all of these contours are hanging onto your hand. If that makes sense. It's kind of hard to explain, but once you're actually doing it, it makes a lot more sense. Now, this wheel looks just like the DTM wheel from Audi in the DTM racing series, and they did that on purpose. I mean, everything looks the same on this wheel. If it's not the wheel, that's how close it is. If it's not the actual wheel and they just put their own buttons on there. Yeah, it's just one of those things that you can tell right away. There's been a lot of work and thought that's gone into this. The front panel here has some buttons, and these buttons are metal. So they're not the plastic buttons, and they have a tactile click. You hear that? You have to push to get that click. You don't just lay your finger up there and get the click. You actually have to push intentionally. And that's a good thing. You want to not have too soft of a button, but being metal gives you a reassuring feel on it somehow, that it just does. There's no flex, in other words. Any other buttons on other wheels that I have that have the plastic coverings on them, even though they got good tactile click, there's always that can always feel a little bit of flex as you bottom out against it. Not that it hurts anything. It gets the job done. It works fine. But immediately you can tell the difference. There's a contrast here on using these buttons. And I'm not sure if they get these buttons from Megaline, but I do know they get the shifters from there, so I don't know for sure. We have 5 buttons going over here, and they're all in pretty good condition, or rather position, that I can reach pretty easily. No matter where my thumb is, I can get to them pretty quickly. Now, of course, the rotaries down here, these are also aluminum, and they have some very nice definitive clicks to them. This one goes 4, goes up to 0, actually. 3, 2, 1, 0. So it goes 0. The thing is, they're duplicating or replicating exactly what's on the DTM wheel. So it goes 0, it goes 1, 2, 3, and then back to 0. Oh, missed 3 there. And 0 again. Over here we have 1, and it goes all the way down to, I believe, 8. I think it's an 8 down there. Yep, for map. And the labels here, these are the way they came for me. Now, when you get a wheel, you order this wheel, it'll be blank. And they give you a sheet of decals to put on these white bits. And all these white bits are actually LED backlit. So everything you see white here has an LED backlight to it, just like you see in the real DTM wheel. I'll give you a couple of shots of that. You can see all these colored rings around the buttons that are in the real wheel when they're using it. Same thing here, and I'll show you that when we get to that point. So yeah, it looks very good. It's not real bright, even though we can change the dimness to it. It has a kind of a matte glow to it instead of something like glass or something like that. And this is not really carbon fiber on the front. And I think the wheels, if you look at the pictures, they kind of have this fiber carbon looking sheet across the top. But this is a little bit different thing or situation they're using. I believe this is a cover over some white material that lets the LEDs filter through. What else can we talk about the front? That's about it. Back, oh yeah, by the way, the front does have its own panel. That's about 2 millimeters thick that this material is sitting on top of. Now, let's go around to the back, and we have some more cool stuff going on here. We've got a button up here. You can see the button's kind of at an angle. Put it around this way, maybe you can see better. See how they kind of go outwards? And if you look at the picture of the Audi wheel, in the back of it there, you can see the same thing. It's not the best picture in the world because I had to blow it up because I didn't want to show anybody's face, infringe on anybody's rights or licensing or anything like that. So yeah, but they're there. And the shifters are there too. The shifter shape is the exact same, but again, it's hard to tell in the picture. But what you can see in the picture is this logo right here, Megaline, right? Because of the parts they're using for Megaline on that wheel. So we're using Megaline shifters here, which have a very tactile click to them. We also are using these buttons here. This is an extra button that operates on a pin here in spring. And you can see that silver piece right here, a little bit here. That is a little spring ball bearing. And it's the exact same thing. I could see it on the wheel over there. This paddle looks exactly the indentation where the paddle works. And if you go on Megaline's site, you can see that their shifters have that, and some of their other buttons have that ball bearing. Same kind of design, exact same thing, because it is theirs, obviously. So yeah, right away, again, at this price point, you would expect stuff like this. A wheel that is exactly the same as it comes out of a DTM car. And that's pretty much what we're looking at here, as far as I can tell in the research I've done. The back casement itself is very well machined. It's cut out, obviously, out of one piece of billet aluminum. Of course, it's hollowed out inside here for the electronics. Then on the back, when they were machining it, these little risers here, these are not some kind of a plastic insert coming out of the wheel. Good shot of this light. There you go. So these are actually part of the CNC machine process. And that's pretty delicate. They leave something like that in for a button without the bit getting in there, maybe hitting something wrong and tearing it right out. So yeah, very nicely done there. I've never seen anything like that on a button yet. So this is something new. And this is what I enjoy in the SRG. New stuff, things I haven't seen before or held in my hand before. So yeah, very well done there, machining the metal around it. And the buttons here, Again, these feel like they're metal. They definitely don't have a feel of plastic to them. And they're easy to reach from the grip. When you have your grip up here, you just reach up here, this finger can grab this, and you can go straight to this. So the ergonomic layout is well thought out. As you might, imagine if it's an Audi wheel. Audi does very good ergonomics and layouts in their regular cars, production cars, because I've had an Audi S7 before, and it was beautiful inside and had great ergonomics. And this kind of lends itself to that, the way this is done. We also have some very nice ribbing in here, right? Or strips left in for support. So these are pieces of aluminum that were left in during the milling process, and they go all the way around, as you can see. So they add strength to the wheel itself. And the important part, again, the area around the hub where all the stress is going to be from the steering wheel. And I've driven it, and yeah, very solid feeling wheel at the same time, but not too solid. In other words, fatiguing solid. It's a fine line there to get something that you can feel all that direct drive force feedback cues coming out of whatever the motor you're running can deliver, but still not be fatiguing after long stints. Now on the back here also, we have these little rotaries here, and they are for a color change. So we actually have 6 different color schemes here. And the color schemes on the Audi wheel, again, you saw in the picture there, you can change these schemes a little bit with this. So it's very nice. And of course, we can make it darker, or we can make it less dark, or brighter and not so bright for the LED brightness. And I'll show you that once we have it mounted, you can see those lights once it's actually working. And I'll show you that probably in a little section too, just cut the lights down low and show you how it's working. So nice adjustments there. We have a 4-pin USB plug down here. Flip it around. There we go. There's 4 pins in there. And of course, that's going to receive the male USB plug, which is a very nice cable, and we'll get that in a minute. What else are we going to talk about here? Yeah, everything's just really well built. The shifter itself, as you heard, it's a loud shifter. Has a very good tactile feel to it, and when I'm gripping it, I'm shifting up here on the top part. I'm not shifting down here on the lower part. So it's right where I need it to be, and it's close to this. I could actually use the shift and go to this too. I wouldn't need to use my forefinger on that. I could actually use this finger, index, or middle rather. So very nice tactile feel, hard to describe it. It's just some switches back here, nothing special here, but again, it doesn't have to be. Let's get a look at it there. So you can see when I push it down, it's manipulating that switch. Get a better look at it there, maybe. There we go. And of course, it's magnetic. We got a magnet here. We have one underneath. You see the one underneath. There it is right there. And the shifter paddles, I've never had a paddle like this before. You can see it has this little curve going on here, almost like a turn on a racetrack. Little hairpin. And it has some ribbing to it here, but it's not real sharp or anything, but it's very grippy. When I was just using my hands, I never, ever slipped off of it. And of course, not with the gloves either. In fact, I think it was made for gloves because obviously race car drivers are always wearing gloves. And yeah, it grips really well. I don't have any problems with it slipping, just never missing a shift. It was always there when I wanted it or needed it. So these shifters are loud though. You hear them, don't you? So you wouldn't want to be using this wheel when your significant other is trying to study or sleep in the next room or something like that. But then again, I don't have those issues here at the SRG. It can be as loud as I want it to be, and it doesn't make any difference. But again, you have to consider that if you're looking to get a wheel like this, or any wheel that has loud shifters. All right, and these buttons don't make too much noise as they go past that ball bearing that we saw before. The buttons, of course, are aluminum. Everything else is aluminum. This little indentation, these are all machined out. You can see the way that indentation is, and it's got this little lip that you may not have noticed before. And that lip is what gives us a nice grip and positive feel when we're pulling that switch. And there's no way we're going to slip off that switch. And it's easy to find that if you use this finger or if you're using this finger. So as you pull, you're kind of pulling down and out anyway with your finger. So that little rib they left in there, that ledge, catches your finger. Very secure. I didn't ever miss using any of these controls. Just well thought out as far as the ergonomics go. Yeah, obviously a wheel that comes in at this price point that is essentially the real deal as far as DTM steering wheel goes for that Audi car. Yeah, you wouldn't expect anything less, I think. Everything here is just the detail, attention details here. Everything lines up properly. Let's see what else we got in here. We got Phoenix Racing Model Class 1. There's a little logo they silk screen in there. Of course, we've got the Mega line on top. Look at that. And over here, we've got Sim Wheel Phoenix Class 1, some other information over there. And this is actually serial number 6. So this is wheel number 6. See the serial number down here on the bottom? Oops. Over there. Now, this came with a SimuCube quick release on it. And there's another adapter we can use with this wheel. But you notice in here, we've got this 4-bolt pattern that's specific to the SimuCube wheel, because that's the way the quick releases come out of the box when you get a SimuCube. They do make this adapter. This is a 6mm thick aluminum adapter, and you can see it's got some recessed holes here, countersunk, and they give you some bolts to put in here so that we can take this off, and then we can put this on, and then we'll get our 70mm PCD pattern across here. So we can mount anything we want to, and each one of those holes is threaded. I don't know if you can see the threads in there, but every one of those holes is threaded. Nice piece. It's done in the same material and finish as the wheel is, so everything matches quite nicely. You get a set of bolts, obviously, to put this on with. Now, what else can we talk about in this wheel? Yeah, it's just, everything just shines on this wheel. Again, as you might imagine, at this price point, it better. But lots of attention detail, feels good in hands, got good weight to it. Of course, some of it's due to this wheel side quick release. It won't be quite as heavy when we put this on. And I'm going to run this on a SimuCube. I have one in the SRG. I normally don't run a SimuCube, but I have a Sport in the SRG somebody sent me, so I'm just checking it out. Probably won't do a review on it, just checking it out, because I've already done a review on one of the SimuCubes. So yeah, I'll be using this also, though. I'll be putting this on so I can put it on my Bodner system. Now we'll take a look at some of the cables that come with this wheel set. First, we have this long, heavy cable here, and this is an extension cable. It's USB 3.0. See, we have a male part here and a female part here. And that's so the wheel can reach wherever your PC may be. If you're on a simulator, something like that, like I am, this is a blessing to have something like this. And this is very long. It's about, I would say, 3 meters. I had plenty when I was running it on the cockpit. So yeah, no worries there. No ferrite sinks on it, but I tell you, this is a thick cable. And you can it feels like there's braid underneath for obviously shielding. It's a very thick cable, and that's what we want to see when it comes to an extended USB cable. When we're trying to get to a USB device, yeah, these extension cables sometimes can cause problems. I've had that problems with them on some other wheels that needed a lot of power to run things. And this wheel typically needs more power than others because obviously it has the LEDs on it that you saw in the pictures, and we're going to see when I show you I'm going to do a little segment on the lighting adjustment. So very nice to have this. Now we have, because of the extra power, again, we have this other piece, little Y cable. This has 2 USBs on it. That will give us enough power off a powered hub or the computer, instead of just having 1 USB port that can only pull so many amps, depending on your PC board and the USB buses, how it's configured there. You might not be able to pull enough power off, so we have 2 so you can plug it in the PC. I have a nice powered hub over there, USB hub, that does 7 amps. I think it's like 2 amps max per port. So that should give it plenty of power to run the LEDs. So far I haven't any issues at all. So yeah. So you would hook this up to the extension. And then of course we have the cable that interfaces with our wheel. And this is a very nice coiled cable, very professional feeling. Has a nice retention in it. Smooth, but not real slick. Hard to describe this. One of these things you really have to have in hand. Kind of like when you're holding that wheel in hand. It's really hard for me to convey in video how these things really feel if you had it in your hands, in your own 3D environment. but it has the USB, obviously A on one end, and it has that male interface that goes into the back of the plug that we saw before, 4 pins. And this is all obviously metal. Even this bit is metal. It's not plastic. At least it doesn't feel like plastic unless it's really hard. But yeah, and this will obviously screw onto the connector back here on the back of the wheel and make a nice secure connection. So that's all we're going to need to hook this wheel up and get it running. So yeah, that's it for the closer look. I don't think there's anything else I want to talk about here. It all pretty much is self-evident. Just very nicely executed, a great result. You certainly do feel like you have a real race car steering wheel in your hand. Yeah, no doubt. Let's take a look at the LED lighting system on this wheel. And this is just like the lighting system that's on the Audi wheel. If you saw the pictures of that in a closer look, yeah, it's really bright no matter what angle we look at this wheel at. So it doesn't matter if you're off angle or on it. And that's a good thing if you're actually in a race and it's dark in the cockpit, you can see all your controls clearly. So typically what we'll see in a sim racing wheel is going to be like, you know, the LEDs going across for your flags and for RPM indicator, things like that. And they'll be like LEDs just lined up. Off angle, they can get a little darker. It's just one of those things that is completely different with this. This has a kind of a matte look to it. It almost glows. You put your finger up to it, you can see the reflection glowing on it. That's what it kind of struck me as. It's just like one of those glow in the dark things, but it's LED powered. There is this translucent sheet that is underneath this carbon fiber sheet. Obviously, that's cut out to where we can see just the light there. There are vanes inside this wheel that manage the light also, so we can have different lights that don't affect the other lights. It doesn't bleed through, in other words, on these other LEDs. I'll show you what I mean by that. The back of the wheel is where the controls are. You may have seen that in a closer look. And we have the dimmer over here on this side. You guys can read that pretty good. And we have color on the other side. And right now, I'm on color 1. So we have 6 different color sequences we can choose from. We're at the full clockwise direction here for the brightness. So it's as bright as we can get it. And I'm going to demonstrate to you what happens here. First off, these buttons blink and they do different things also. Let's say radio. I press on the radio button and I'm trying to talk to my pit crew, then it actually blinks as I have it pressed down, like it does in the real wheel. Pretty cool, huh? Some of them don't blink, they just click. And then in the white scheme, doesn't have the features of some of the color schemes, and I'll go through that as we get to it too. Let's see, there's another one that blinks. This is ALS. No, that's not it. I believe it's this one down here. Alarm. If you press this, you're getting alarms. That'll blink. And these rotaries don't do anything in this color scheme. We have the neutral button over here. That doesn't do anything. Let's see what we've got. Start. Doesn't do anything. Nothing there. Push to pass. That blinks. We have that. All right. So now we're going to go through the color schemes. I'm going to go through one first. Color scheme 1. Now, once you go to the color schemes, different things happen when you hit the buttons. Let's go to the one that was flashing before, alarm. Yeah, see, when I press the alarm now, it blinks a different color. And if I press this button, it goes to a different color. As you can see, it's the same colors. And then this button over here goes to a yellow. Check that out. Yeah, let's see. I lost my place there. And that one is momentary on. Radio is flashing blue. And then we'll go over here, and this button goes to yellow. And our push to pass will blink. And we'll go down to this guy. That changes that color as we press it on and off. And while we have that down, that hit the starter motor, changes colors, and we have the neutral button over here. Lets us know we're going to neutral. And the dial here doesn't change any colors, but this dial over here, this analog dial, changes colors every time we turn it. Pretty cool. And we'll go to color scheme number 3. And again, as we change through these color schemes, they'll be doing different colors when we press them. Go back to the alarm, see what it says. That's white now, so it flashes a blue. And our wheel, I think that does the same colors all the way through. But you guys get the idea. The colors are changing. So I'm going to go to color scheme number 4 now. And then we'll go to color scheme number 5. Here's 5. See what's happening on the buttons up here. Okay, they're changing colors too. As you press it down, it changes. Alarm's still blue there. It changes to red. Huh. And this one's still, I believe, the same colors. Oh, that's different actually this time. Kind of goes to a white. Hard to see that. It's very, very vague. Goes to yellow, purple. And finally, the color scheme that I like is this one. It's got some red in it, or kind of a reddish color to it. And if we hit the LS, changes to a green. This goes yellow. So again, the colors are definitely different on this side. All right, so you guys get the idea. It's a very comprehensive lighting scheme in here. So you understand what you're doing when you're pushing the buttons. So the driver can obviously keep abreast of what he's doing, hopefully, and not mess something up. Now, I'm going to hit the dimmer back here. We're at the brightest right now. I'm going to hit the dimmer, and the dimmer will dim this down. Slowly turn it here. It should get a little bit less color. I don't know how well this is conveying on the video. But yeah, this is kind of washing out now. It'll go all the way to off. It's washing out even more. Yeah, see how it washed out that is? And if we keep turning it, eventually it's going to go, there it is, it goes off. Now when it's off, nothing happens. No lights anywhere, no matter what buttons you're pressing. And I'm not sure why anyone would run this wheel with it off, because it's so cool when it's on and the lights are actually functional. Anyway, as you can see, I'm pretty impressed with the little light system that they have in here and the way it's implemented, the same way it's implemented in the car when the driver's actually driving it. So let's go back to super bright here. That's where I'm going to have it, like that. And that's how I'm going to be running it. So there it is. There's the LED lights and the way they work. And yeah, we'll just get on to the next segment. Now we're going to talk about the mounting options that we have for this wheel. Now this comes with a SimuCube mount on it. So if you have a SimuCube wheelbase, you don't have to do anything. You just bolt it on and off you go. But for people who don't have the SimuCube base, like me, then we're going to have to change this out. Now they make an adapter that I showed you before in a closer look. This is 5 millimeters thick, and we have some countersunk holes in here for the pattern that's going to match the pattern over here on the SimuCube quick release. And then we have 6 5 millimeter tapped, or M5 tapped holes in this, and we have threads in each one of these holes, which may cause you to do things a certain way if you have another threaded hole on the quick release you're going to put it onto, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So first thing is to remove these 4 bolts here. These are socket head cap stainless steel units. We're going to take those out with this 4 millimeter wrench, or M4, rather 4 millimeter hex wrench. And yeah, we're going to go ahead and just take those out. Going the right way here. You got to break them loose first. There we go. Now we can run them out. Okay, we've got them out. Should just be able to pick it up like this. And you can save these bolts, because I'm going to be using a different bolt because of the way this plate is shaped. We need flatheads. So we're going to save these. Let's flip it around, get them all out. Very simple. Put this aside. And then we'll come back with this plate, and we're going to put this one. Now, you do have to orient it properly. You see what's in here once we take that off. There's the 4-hole pattern. You do have to orient this properly. What I mean is these holes will only line up a certain way on this 4-hole pattern. And what I'm going to do is kind of look down here and try to gauge where, and kind of turn it. I'm just turning it this way and gauge where these holes are going to line up properly. And there it is. Now I have my holes lined up. When you get this adapter piece, they send you some bolts. I've got some bolts over here. These are the 5mm. These are 10 millimeters long, and they have a 3mm hex head on it for the wrench size, and that's an M5 thread. And again, very simple what we're going to do here. Just take it and put these on, lined up here. And I don't use a power wrench when I'm starting new screws into threaded holes, because it's just, I want to get a feel for what's going on. And this power wrench over here is pretty numbing when you're using it. So you can't get a feel for anything. But if I have a long distance to run a screw down, then obviously I would be using it. But this is not that long. So it seems like everything's lining up. So I'm just going to spin these down. Nice. Everything's going in quite nicely. And go ahead and turn this down. This is going to give us a 70mm PCD to mount a traditional type of quick release that we can buy aftermarket. Q1R, the Zero Play from HRS, which I'll be using. So we'll go ahead and snug these up. I'm going to use my wrench to really snug them up. I'm not going to do it power. I'm just going to put it in there and actually turn it the right way, Barry. There we go. I'm not going to tighten it too much because you don't want to strip these out. That's the last thing you want to do. You just want to get a good feel for it. You want to make sure they're tight because you don't want your wheel coming off, do you? That would be bad. Right. So now that we have this sorted, that's what it looks like. You can see those flathead screws are sitting below the surface area here so that we can get our other quick release on without any issues. Now I'm going to come back and put that quick release on. Now we're going to mount the quick release adapter to the back of the wheel now that we have our adapter for the 70mm PCD mounted to their hub. Now, one thing you want to pay attention to here is these holes don't quite line up. I don't want to say they line up. They do line up. They don't clear the edge of this hub piece here. All right. So this hole here, in fact, I'm see if you could see down in there. Look at this one here. You can see the edge of the hub itself in these holes. I think you can see that clearly. It's hard for me to tell on this little monitor that I'm using here, but if you look straight down, you should be able to see a not quite round hole there. I hope that's showing up like I want it to. Anyway, that means we can't run a bolt all the way through the hole and have stuff sticking out the end of it. We have to have it internal to this 5mm, so we have 5mm of space here of thread engagement we can use. Keep that in mind. Now, the adapter comes with some bolts, enough bolts to get your quick release adapter on, and they are 8mm and 10mm, and there's a reason for that, because, well, there's different thicknesses of quick release adapters you'll be putting on here. But here's the thing. This HRS quick release I'm using has a 7mm thick flange on it, and they come with threaded holes. If you'll notice on this one, if you can see it well enough there, there's no threads in these holes. There might be some shadows of the threads that were once there. And I took a drill bit and just drilled this out. I didn't drill the hole out. I just drilled the threads out so that a 5mm bolt will still fit in there, but slide in easily like this. So instead of having to screw this in, now I can just push it in like that. Sticks out the bottom. Now, and this is the only adapter I have like that. All the rest of my quick releases for the HRS system do have the threads still in them because I can use them. Now, if you notice when I push this in, that there's about, this is a 10mm, so this is a 7mm flange, so there's 3 mils or millimeters. Some people get on me for saying mils. Millimeters sticking out. Well, I'm not very confident about that providing the grip that I need on a 25 Newton meter wheel. So I'm not going to use these. I'm going to use these, which I happen to have. These are some stainless steel 12 millimeters. So 12, that gives me about 7 millimeters sticking out. Much better as far as engaging the threads on this adapter over here. I'm much more confident having 6 bolts with that much thread in there, tightened down, torqued down properly. Yeah, no problem there. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get this on. Now, when I'm laying this down, if you guys saw before, maybe you were wondering, these knobs kind of stick out right here. So I'm very careful about what I'm doing when I lay this down. They're fine like this. And when I'm tightening things, I'm actually keeping the pressure off of those knobs when I'm holding this and tightening it. In case you guys were wondering about pushing those knobs down. Got to be very careful with this stuff. I don't want to mess anything up. So we'll go ahead and get these started. Bear with me here as I do that. And then we'll run them down, get them torqued down tightly. And then we'll be ready to run. Let's go ahead and spin these down. Okay, now I'm going to take pressure off the wheel as I'm doing this. I'm going to snug all these up. I'll come back with another wrench in a little bit and get a final torque on these, because you can't get a lot of torque on these because of they're so long that they actually twist when you try to tighten things up, which is a good thing. It means you probably won't strip anything. But I'm just going to snug these up with this, and then we'll come back, like I said, with a proper 5mm metric wrench. Get these puppies torqued down. Although this does a pretty good job. So there we have it. Adapter installed, and of course our quick release adapter installed. So I've got the wheel disassembled, at least as far as I want to go, to give you guys a look inside. We'll look at the casement section first. It has a lot of detail in here that's well done, as you might imagine. The handles are not part of the casement. They are actually bolted in, which makes it easy to change the grips when they need to be changed. Got some big socket head caps here holding those on. Yeah, just a very industrial build here. We have a bunch of pieces here that are kind of a standoff, but of course it's left into the piece of billet when we're milling it. And of course they're tapped for threads, and that's where all these you see on this all the way around, that's for bolting this piece together with this piece. But this piece is very, very stiff without this on it. So yeah, and it should be. The cable management, again, very good. I can't find anything to pick on here. They've done a very good job here. And it's neat that we can actually see a little bit. I don't know how it's going to show up on video. But the buttons, these back buttons that are sitting at angles, this piece here is holding that button, is part of the casement, right? So it's left in the milling process. And it's at an angle, and you can see the angle. Well, I don't know how else it's going to show up going in here. That's some tricky, a bit of machining there to get that right. It's not that thick, I don't think. So yet I would be worried if I was doing it that it would rip it out. You know, that something would go wrong with the bit and just hit something wrong and the whole thing would go bad. That's a whole piece of billet aluminum ruined. But yeah, they've done a real good job with that. Everything is secured with socket head caps. The buttons on top here, you can see the other side of them there. And the shifters themselves are attached in here. And that's what these are for. These supporting pieces here. They're apparently tapped. Looks like it to me. That's where, I don't know, it might be. Yeah. Yeah, because I'm looking at the bolts themselves that are in the shifters there. And where they're coming in, it looks like they're coming in right there. Yeah, nothing to complain about here. And it gives us an opportunity to get a better look at these pieces or vanes, these structural supports that are left in the back. The longer pieces here, shorter pieces up here. And this is not solid, actually. I'm surprised to see that. They've left a little hole out here for that. And yeah, not much else to see. With the pieces here were the dimmer and the color. We got the dimmer here. Yeah, it's dimmer, yeah. Dimmer here and the color adjustment there. course, that's a USB, and we have a little plug for the USB there. These actually interface with the circuit board. It's a good time to show you the circuit board. With these pieces down here, these are the rotaries where those shafts slip into those. You see they have that shape to them where they're rounded, except there is a flat spot on each one of them. And the front analog encoders, these guys here, are manipulated right here. And you can see their shafts are actually sticking in there. Same kind of arrangement. We've got a kind of a semicircle with a flat piece on it there. It's keyed so it fits in there. And of course we have the Bodner BU0836A USB interface board. Industry standard. You know, all the high level stuff uses this. Just, they don't even mess around because they know this works. I like the way we've got this mounted to the PCB. Got these little standoffs, these little clip standoffs. See those there? Little guys here. Get the glare off of it right there. So it's easy to pop that on and off if you needed to do anything to it, replace it, what have you. And this board is made by Megaline Racing Electronics. Yep. There's their logo right there. And of course, it doesn't surprise me because, yeah, that's who makes the wheel for the Audi. So yeah, very nicely done here. I can't show you too much about the electronics now. I could pull this board off, but I just don't want to get involved with all these switches. Trying to unmount them, so, or make sure nothing happens when they come out. I don't know how they're put in there, and I just don't have hours to spend looking for it. And again, better to leave stuff like that alone sometimes. All right, so the LEDs, you can see these right there. See how they're going around there? These LEDs are all around this circuit board. Get my fingers out of the way. And you can see that's how they're doing the lighting. All the way around the circumference there. Each button, obviously. All these little white squares are LEDs. And you can see them sitting in there. In the front part here, you can see some of them back behind these plugs, surface mount plugs. Got some back there for the logo lighting. Not really much to see on the circuit board, just another circuit board, lots of surface mount rather, capacitors, resistors, inductors, you know, the usual stuff, usual characters. There may be a chip or two in here. I can't really tell from here. But yeah, very neatly sorted. I wouldn't expect anything else. Again, like I said, when I was looking at that, at this price point and being a real racing wheel. So again, these standoffs, all of these are sitting up here, part of the CNC machine plate that everything's attached to. Tapped and drilled. No less than 14 mounting bolts to secure this together. One more thing I did want to show you is, if you can see this, see the white sitting in here? The piece of white that we're looking at. There we go. And there's some of it down here on the other part as I roll it around, try to show you guys all of that. That's how the LEDs, obviously mounted on the other side, are shining through. And so all this, these white pieces we see on the front of this board is what we're seeing there. And that allows everything to shine through. Because I bet you there's pretty bright inside of here. If we could ever get a camera in there and look at it once this is sealed up and all that's on. And yeah, all those LEDs lit up. Yeah, I like what I'm seeing here. I don't have any complaints. I don't have any suggestions to do it better. This is the way you do it. Now, every one of these, and attention to details, everything. I did take the button switches off, or the levers for those switches on the back off, just to give you a better shot of that. Plus, I had to access one of the bolts that secures the plates together. And you can see there's the little lip on that. Very nice. Everything's well done. Really done. Quite well here. All the machining. Every single bolt. Now, there's 14 of these M3, these long M3 socket head caps that came out of the casement. And they all have a generous amount of blue Loctite on them, which is how you build a real racing wheel. Even the lever I just showed you there, the screws that came off of that, again, a generous amount of blue Loctite everywhere I looked. And again, you want to do that because these are the bolts that actually hold the hub itself on. This guy here. And you can see they're kind of cool. They're like acorns, but they're not. They had that shape or design to it, but the whole thing is one bolt. But yeah, generous amounts of blue Loctite on that also. All the vibrations in a race car, the bumps and the hits it takes, You definitely want to build everything, anything that's going in that car really, with some kind of a Loctite solution involved with it. So yeah, there's our look inside, and we'll get on to the next segment. I want to do a quick segment on showing how these encoders are working on this wheel. These are not like a digital button push. These are analog access, each one of these encoders. And I've got the interface properties up here for Windows. I'm going to turn this, and you can watch one of these move. See, the dial is moving. There are notches in here, obviously. You can hear them clicking. But it's in axis. And you can see it's under axes. And the same thing going on over here with our wiper. All right. And of course, we have our button presses and our shifter stuff. I mean, this is typical stuff we'll be checking in this interface. Back buttons. Everything is working, as you might imagine. So I just want to show you how that's working as an analog axis on these encoders. Most games will have a facility to adapt to that. My next segment will be showing that in iRacing. Because this Phoenix Racing Class 1 DTM wheel has two analog axes for the rotaries, you will have to make a change in the software game that you're using. And I'm going to give you an example of that here in iRacing. What I'm going to do is go up to Fuel Mixture Set. Currently it's unassigned, and I'll click on that, and it defaults to choose a controller to increase the value, obviously. Use up, down buttons or encoder is the default. So I'm going to drop that down by clicking on this little arrow. And you can actually choose use rotary knob, analog or digital. So that's what we want to do. I'm going to click on that. And when I do that, it says turn the knob all the way to the right, then turn all the way to the left. And when we're done, we just click done. I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to turn it clockwise to the right over to, let's see, we're on 1 now. So we'll go over to all the way to the end, 8. And we're going to rotate it back to the left. And we're back at 1. And then I'm going to click done. Complete the wizard. And we go up here, we can see our fuel mixture set is now device 0, axis 1. So now we can use it to change, obviously, our fuel mixtures while we're in the car. Pretty simple stuff, but I did want to show you that that's how you can get past the analog axes that are on these rotaries if you want to use it as a button type of input. Now we have the Phoenix Racing Class 1 wheel mounted, and I'm using the SimuCube hub on the back of the wheel because we're using a SimuCube Sport here for some of the drive testing. I'll also be using my Bodner later on, using the 70mm PCD we saw before, the adapter. So we'll go around here, and everything is securely attached now. So we got our USB cable there going through the motor mount. We'll go around the monitor mount leg here, and we're using, of course, the USB extension cable that came with the wheel itself. Very nice thick cable, as I said before. Feels like it's got some shielding, very thick shielding or something in it because it's a stiff cable. And it comes up, goes down into the spider's nest down here. For all the equipment that I have here at the SRG running on this rig. And yeah, you can see the red USB that we saw on that Y cable over here, and the other cable is over there at the end. A nice 7 amp powered hub here. Good, always good to have one of these if you have a lot of USB peripherals you're using, and I always do. And yeah, so pretty simple to hook it up. Everything's set up as it should. Windows recognize this wheel straight away. No issues. And so yeah, all we have to do now is get in and do some driving. So we're at Sebring in the 488 GT3 Ferrari in iRacing, and yeah, having a good time running this wheel. Be using some buttons here that I've already mapped to be able to go through my black boxes and do some other things. Not much to show you as far as just using buttons. And pretty much every wheel will do this. Nothing special here, right? And the lighting scheme is kind of nice. When you hit a button, some of them change and let you know what's going on. The first thing I noticed about this wheel that I did like is the grip. You know, I was talking about the grip before and the closer look. It's just one of those things, and this is very subjective too, by the way. Just because I feel this way about something certainly doesn't mean you will. But I'll just tell you my impressions of it. That's all I can do. So it gives you some confidence that you don't get in a wheel that's just round as far as the grip goes. If it's just a round grip, even if it hits like flat on the inside, it's good enough to grip and hang on to. But when you have a molded grip like this that has the grooves in the back of the wheel, you saw a little twitch there. I caught a little slide real quick. It just gives you the confidence to do that. Your fingers fit in those grooves in the back. And as you're squeezing the wheel, it's like you don't have to squeeze the wheel or the grip as hard as I normally do when I'm in some of my other wheels to hang on. I run higher torque levels. Not everybody does. But yeah, it just kind of locks your fingers in your hand on the grip without gripping as hard, if you can understand what I'm trying to say. It's just one of those things that you have to do it to feel it and understand what's going on there. So it's actually a less fatiguing wheel, to me anyway, on longer stints. I found that out right away. I was doing some laps over at the ring, and those are 6-7 minute laps on just one lap. So I did a bunch of laps over there, and I found that my hands just didn't have as much fatigue in them as they did on some other wheels that I use all the time. And I have to put that down to the way that your fingers lock into those indentations on the back of the grips. The wheel stiffness overall is very stiff. On the bench, I could feel it. And on this wheel, even though this is only a 15 Newton meter wheel I'm currently using it on, this is the Cube Sport, yet you can feel the stiffness in the wheel, but it's not so stiff. Those rubber grips are hard, but they just give you enough buffering through the vibrations. You'll see my wheel twitching a lot here because I run it as high as I can. And you can see me when I'm coming off curves at dropping as we're over at the ring now, obviously. I want to do a lap over here for you. Yeah, it's just a confidence-inspiring wheel as far as the grip. At 285 millimeters wide on the grips, it's right in what I call the sweet spot between that and 300. For me anyway. Some might want something a little wider. Some might want something a little more narrow. It's up to you. But I like this size for me. 290 is also good for me. Once it gets to 300, that's where my limit is, I think. So this fits right in my sweet spot. And again, that doesn't mean it would be the same for you. And it gets, like I said, it just locks you in. It's very stiff. It allows the wheelbase to deliver all of the force feedback cues that it's capable of delivering straight to your hands. And that's not all wheels can do that. Some of them are a little bit more flexy than others. And of course, any flex when you're attached to a direct drive wheel is going to dampen some of those finer cues that you're getting from your force feedback that whatever the wheelbase you're using can deliver. So this just lets it deliver it as much as possible, but not so stiff that it's a fatiguing wheel. And I think that has, again, back to do with what the grips are made of and how they fit your hand. It's just kind of one of those things that's hard to explain. You have to do it. It's like in a video, I'm kind of lost trying to convey this to you. I can say that I really like this wheel. I'm having a lot of trouble finding a complaint about it, except maybe the price point. But then, that's another subject entirely. It's like I said, I like this wheel. I enjoy driving it, and I'll be using it for a while, I think. It's just one of those wheels that just feels like you're really there. And being a true race car wheel, it gives you obviously more immersion when you're using it, and you can imagine how a driver in the real car would feel, minus all the G-force, of course, when they're handling this wheel going around the course. So yeah, I really can't find anything to complain about here. The shifters are very crisp. They're loud. I guess I can complain about that, but it depends on who you are and where you're using it. Obviously, it doesn't affect me at the SRG, but again, if you're trying to run your car in the next room next significant other or somebody else that's trying to get some sleep or study, it would definitely, they would hear it. No doubt. That click, click, click. But it is very satisfying and it feels pretty good. And again, it's not a fatiguing click over long stints. That's another thing I think about. I've had aluminum shifters with aluminum handles on them before that just my fingers got tired because it was such a stiff click. There was just like no dampening to the click at all. It was just solid metal to metal. And this is also metal to metal, but if you'll notice on the back of that, when I showed you the shifters, how that lever of the shifter where your finger's actually contacting it is further up from where it's attached to the lever itself on the shifter. So that gives us some leverage there, or a dampening effect, because our finger is so far away from the contact point is where we're pulling it. And I think that's why it comes together and feels really good. So yeah, you would expect something like that to be in a race car so that the driver everywhere they can, they try to help the driver as far as not wear them out too quick so they can keep racing and concentrate and drive as fast as they can and consistently as they can. So anyway, that's it. I'll let you guys see the rest of this lap if you want. If not, I'll see you over at the final thoughts. Final thoughts on the Class 1 DTM racing steering wheel from Phoenix Racing. They developed this wheel to directly simulate the actual steering wheel used in the Audi DTM racing car, using real race car wheel parts, design, and lighting solutions. When I first discovered this wheel was being produced, I was very interested in getting one for testing in the SRG, as the DTM racing series has been a favorite of mine for a long time. At the price of over €3,100 at the time of this review, it sets expectations at the highest level. The wheel ships in a custom case that is watertight. Out of the case, the wheel has a very high quality feel to it. The grips are made of a hard rubber material that has a tacky texture to them. They have contours that help your fingers maintain a tight grip without as much effort as when using a wheel without them. I found it less fatiguing than other grips that I use. This wheel is 285 millimeters wide, which I consider a minimum from a comfort standpoint. The button faces are aluminum. They have a solid feel to them when actioned. The front encoder knobs are aluminum, as are the rear knobs used to dim and change the color scheme of the LED solution. The LED lighting is quite unique to anything I've tested before. They have a luminescent glow to them that looks very good, even when viewed off angle. The lights flash different colors when actioned, as well as the right side encoder. There are 6 different color schemes to choose from. The dimmer knob allows the user to adjust to taste. Around back there are 2 more buttons and a pair of very tactile feeling shifters. In the look inside segment, we were able to see how the LEDs were mounted and a top flight constructed circuit board from Megaline Electronics, the same guys who construct the DTM Audi wheel. The wheel comes with a Simucube wheel side quick release. A 70 PCD adapter is also available for mounting other quick release adapters. As you might imagine, this is a very nice wheel to turn laps with. It has a stiffness to it that allows your force feedback wheelbase to deliver all the force feedback cues it is capable of producing. But as you would expect, it did not make me a faster driver. Now, of course, I'm not going to try and tell you that you need to buy this wheel. A wheel at this price point will mostly be bought by those sim racers who have the means and want a wheel that is exactly like the one in the Audi DTM race car. If you do acquire one of these wheels, you won't be disappointed. I'm Barry Rowland. Thanks again for watching the Sim Racing Garage channel. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And if you would like to help support what I do here at the SRG, visit my website at simracinggarage.com.